What's up, everybody? Welcome into today's episode of Pushing the Pile. This show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. We're going to be rolling through all of Week 3 games to preview. But before we get to that, we are going to break down a little bit of Thursday Night Football. And I stress a little bit because obviously Bills run away with it 31-21. Don't quite cover the spread. It was 11.5 points, so the Dolphins get that in their favor at least. Over hits as 49.5. What was your number, JP, from this game to know?
My number was 11, and that is 11 passes that Tua completed behind the line of scrimmage. It is also the amount of passes that Tua completed above the line of scrimmage. And it just felt like this is unsustainable offense for Miami. You cannot continue to try and get everything in paper cuts in an offense that's meant to go and gash teams downfield over middle of the field with all that speed. And the thing about Tua that I noticed was just he's just not seeing the field that well right now. I mean, of course, the lack of arm strength is going to affect them. There was a play, I think it was like a deep post to Tyreek Hill that he underthrows by like 5 yards, and Hill has to go catch it like a punt return. But there were a couple of out routes that he just kind of sailed because he didn't have his feet set. There was one rolling to his left where he just completely missed Tyreek Hill again. But the game was still close. And I think that's a level of competitiveness that you want to see from Mike McDaniel's Dolphins. But still, like, you have a $250 million question at quarterback that I don't think they can answer right now.
Yeah, I tweeted out this morning that Tua's cap hits from this year all the way through 2028 are higher than Josh Allen's. How are you going to compete with the Bills when you're paying your quarterback more over the next 4 seasons? You're just in a really bad way. And Tua's like the perfect type of quarterback to where it's going to be really tough to cut him. You know, it's a lot of money, yes, but he's good enough and his stats are going to be good enough that it's just going to be hard to really bite that bullet and get rid of him. There's so few teams we've seen in NFL history, unless like there's a really big injury or something like that, are willing to move on from their starting quarterback when they're playing, you know, at an okay level. I think in this one, Tua was quite obviously not good enough. There were a lot of plays left on the field that you saw, and just the way they run their offense, he's got to be so precise. He, with the lack of arm strength, the lack of ability to create outside the pocket, he has to be so precise down in and down out, and just really was not in this game. My number was, I'll go to the flip side though. My number was 2, and that is Dalton Kincaid. His touchdowns already this season, matching his career high. We kept saying ever since they drafted him, I thought this was the Bills trying to get their version of Travis Kelce. When you go and look at the 2 biggest dynasties over the last 25 years in the NFL, both had the 2 best tight ends of the last 25 years. Like that having that guy that you trust helps. And I feel like finally, for the first time, the first 2 years of their careers of Dalton Kincaid's career, it just felt like the rapport was never quite there with Josh Allen. It finally feels like it is. Had a touchdown this one early on. Could have had a second one. It was broken up at the catch point. But you just see Josh trusting him in a manner and Kincaid responding in a manner that just really we had not seen through his first 2 seasons.
I also think that the Bills are trying, or not trying, they are, I guess I call it the perfect cell version of the Chiefs, where they are Chiefsifying their offense, where if Dalton Kincaid is on the field and you don't respect him as a blocker, they'll just keep adding tight ends onto the field until you get in base and you have to respect them. That's why you go and add Jackson Halls. That's why you still have Dawson Knox on the field. So you make Dalton Kincaid a blocker on smaller guys, and he's a good blocker on DBs and smaller linebackers. But now what you've done is you've created a mismatch for Dalton Kincaid when you're in base personnel, which is where the Bills want to live. They want to be a 12 and 13 personnel team. So as long as they continue to do that, I think Dalton Kincaid's going to help them really try and find some more explosiveness within the offense. That was my one gripe about the Bills from Thursday. They just could not be explosive through the air. But as long as they have Dalton Kincaid kind of being the true, like you said, it's sort of their version of Travis Kelce matching up against linebackers in base, then they're going to go really far because they always win that matchup battle.
Yes, and you saw it on numerous occasions in that game. And then Jackson Hawes, the guy we highlighted last week on the show, gets his first touchdown catch in the NFL. So it was it's funny, like they really spammed that stuff that we talked about. We said they were moving from a 6-0 line offense to more of two tight ends and a fullback on the field more. And it worked a lot in that game. Running game was going. Now, obviously, a lot of things work against the Miami Dolphins defense. But yeah, this Bills offense, the flexibility they have in the run and pass game is going to be very difficult to stop. I want to close with this because Miami Dolphins, I think this could be a house cleaning sort of situation at the end of the year. But I just cannot fathom that I've never seen, and this was the case last year, but still the case this year. Their tallest wide receiver in their 3 deep is 5'9.5". I've never seen a receiving core put together like this. And that, like, they're just like cool with that. That Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Malik Washington are all 5'9.5" or shorter. It's just insane to me.
It's insane. They have Nick Westbrook-Akine, who is 6'2", but they have him designated as a blocker when they get into 11 personnel. Don't throw the ball to him. But it's so fascinating for Mike McDaniel to come from the Shanahan system and Shanahan offense and just get away from bigger body receivers.
Yeah.
Because it feels like they're trying to do all this explosive stuff down the field, and they can't do it because of a lot of the schematic and physical limitations of their players, but they have nobody to do the dirty work. They don't have a George Kittle or even a Dalton Kincaid that can work underneath. They're relying on yards after the catch from Malik Washington. They're relying on it from Jalen Waddle. And is that the best way to use those guys? I mean, you have Devon Achane basically being another version of your slot receiver on all these underneath targets, but it just feels like they're trying to create something out of just the smallest offense ever. And they get pushed around. And that was the biggest issue that I had with the McDaniel Dolphins. They get pushed around a lot. And we saw it a lot on Thursday where the Bills just kind of pushed them around for 60 minutes.
Yeah. And I think the nail in the coffin for Greer will be, or could be, obviously, I don't know if owners think like this, but they traded up 48 and 98 for Jonas Avianaya, and he's been awful. Like, truly in this game, a turnstile for the second straight week. You can't make a play like that in a situation like this where you make a play like that if you're close, if you think that's like a missing piece, and you make a play like that if you're desperate, and you can't make that move and then have that guy just not only not be an impact player, be kind of unplayable at this point in time for the Miami Dolphins.
On the flip side of that, Deion Walker in Buffalo, really playing well. He had a quick pressure on the game-ending Tua pick that it reminded me of Deion Walker when he was healthy at Kentucky. If he can be that impact player against the run and the pass for Buffalo, that's going to help their defense out so much because he just brings size. Like, he brings another big person into the lineup who can actually create quick pressures. That's where the Bills need him. They need him to win instantly because the Bills don't really have pass rushers that aren't Ed Oliver that win quickly.
Oh, I loved that pick when they got him. Just and the fit. I mean, I think he is exactly what they wanted to on the line of scrimmage. His skill set fits perfectly. He's not going to be the guy to sit on blocks. If he's sitting on a block, he's probably getting moved 5 yards off the line of scrimmage. But if he could just, you can just let him get in the backfield,
just go upfield.
He's going to do so. All right. There's your Thursday football recap. All season long, though, up to the playoffs, Cash App is sponsoring our locks. We'll track how we're doing each episode, with the winner being presented with Cash App's lock trophy at the end of the season. Last week, well, not so hot for your boy. After a hot start where I went 5-1 the first week, I go 1-5. Tampa Bay saves me on Monday Night Football with a close cover there at the end. JP holding strong, going 3-2 last week. He leads the way at 63%. I say leads the way because I am not counting Kyle's Arizona and Buffalo money line picks. I could pick the Buffalo money line. I'm going to pick the Buffalo money line every week, and whoever plays the Browns every week, money line. And I will go 95% over the course of this season. We're not going to, those are going to be scrapped from the record. He starts this week. Harry, though, he's 3-3 as well, but had himself a nice bounce back week, hitting 2-1. All right. We're going to take a quick break. After that, we're going to get to the entire slate, our locks and picks for the games. Sunday, though, you can count on the NFL and CBS delivering a great slate of games, including two of the league's best receivers going head-to-head when Jamar Chase and the Bengals meet Justin Jefferson's Vikings. The fun gets started at noon Eastern with the special throwback edition of the NFL Today. You can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount+.
Sunday, you can count on CBS Sports getting down with the fantastic slate of games. But first, a little fun when we throw it back to celebrate 50 years of the NFL today. Count on Sunday with the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus.
That Bengals-Vikings game looked a lot better 2 weeks ago, I will say, than it does right now. But we will get to that. But we're going to start with some of the good games first. We're going to start with the Detroit Lions at the Baltimore Ravens. The game of the weekend, I'd say, on Monday Night Football. So we're going to have to wait a few days for it. Ravens are 5.5-point favorites. 52.5 points is the over-under. Some injuries, though. A lot of DNPs on Thursday. Justin Madubuike, Nate Wiggins, Isaiah Likely, Kyle Van Noy, all didn't practice. DJ Reed, Kirby Joseph were limited participants, whereas Taylor Decker, Jack Campbell, and Marcus Davenport all DNPs as well. So those are worth noting. Both teams come in 1-1. Both obviously teams with Super Bowl aspirations. How do we see this one playing?
This game feels like one, especially with all the injuries, that we're going to enjoy, obviously, but it feels like we'll enjoy it more when they meet potentially later down the line when everybody is fully playing. But this one should be a really fun game, a lot of points scored. I think that Baltimore is such a buzzsaw offensively. Like, I don't think it gets discussed enough how Todd Monken and Lamar Jackson have created the best offense in the NFL, because they have so many different ways to get at you. If you want to turn it into a rock fight, they have one of the best ground games in the NFL, because you have to defend Lamar and Derrick Henry. They can get into 22, 21 personnel with Pat Ricard. But if you want to spread and shred and turn this into a shootout, they can also do that as well. I'm going to be curious for watching if Jared Goff and the Lions offense can kind of get after the Ravens, especially in the middle of the field. I think that's going to be dangerous, especially with Kyle Hamilton sort of just lurking in that area. But I do think that there's potential, especially with Roquan Smith sort of slowing down. Like, I'm not saying that he's not a good player. I do think that he's kind of lost a step a little bit. But if you're able to kind of get after them in the middle of the field, turn Jared Goff into a jugs machine, maybe this game can reach that 52.5.
Yeah, I love the over in this one. I didn't put it as one of my locks, but it just feels like, kind of like what week one was for the Ravens, where it's just going to be a lot of back and forth, especially if no Nnamdi Madubuike and no Nate Wiggins. Like, if those two guys are out, the one guy who you think can really, not the one guy, Travis Jones can too, wreak havoc on the interior of that defense, but the one guy who really would be able to expose maybe the pass rushing or pass protection issues in the interior of the Detroit Lions offensive line. If they don't have that, you're just going to see that same play action heavy approach we saw a week ago. Just spam it if you're the Detroit Lions and get something going on the ground game. But yeah, I don't have a handle on, I think I don't trust anyone to stop the Ravens. There's not a lot of times I'm going to be picking a team to beat the Ravens this year. That's just how highly I think of them. But I do just think this is going to be I don't want to say necessarily the last team with the ball wins, but it's going to be we're in the fourth quarter and they're just throwing it back and forth to each other sort of game.
Yeah, I'm super curious in how Calvin Shepard continues to tinker with this Lions defense. He's throwing in a little bit more cover two, a little bit more sim pressures where he's dropping linemen a little bit more than Aaron Glenn. Aaron Glenn, great coordinator, very, very much cover one. We're going to play man. We're going to live in that man world. But with the way that Terry and Arnold's been playing, can you live like that against the Ravens in constant man coverage? Because not only will you have to worry about the explosive passes downfield if Arnold's not playing well, it's if you play man, you don't have anybody to defend Lamar Jackson. I mean, you just don't have anybody that quick. So I'm curious on what the Lions do defensively. Do they throw a little bit more zone coverage at the Ravens just to try and make them paper cut them instead of gash them?
Yeah, especially if, so you mentioned DJ Reed. If he can't go, you can't play man. You cannot.
You can't survive.
You can't even try. You really cannot even try. So they're going to have to throw a curveball there. Can't keep throwing the fastball and expecting the Lamar Jackson and company not to hit some home runs this game. All right, let's get to the other game of the weekend. Actually, there's probably like 3 games of the weekend, and then the rest of the slate's kind of whatever. But this is one of them, a rematch that we saw twice last year. Eagles won both contests, one in the regular season, one in the playoffs. Rams traveling to Philly. Philly 3.5-point favorites. 44.5 points is the over-under for this one. And this one's one of my locks. It's Saquon Barkley over 89.5 rushing yards because he went over 200 in both of these. And there's a reason why. And we talked about a lot this offseason, me and Kyle did. The Rams have one of the smallest defensive lines in the NFL. I mean, they are slight. The Eagles are the opposite. They kind of they can lean on you. When lighter built front seven against an O-line that goes like 350 almost across the board, except for center, you're going to be in for a long day. So I'm not sure I see that necessarily changing. And that's still why I like the Eagles here.
I also like the Eagles, but I do think this game is going to be really close. I worry about how static the Eagles passing game is. They really miss Dallas Goedert a lot. And I think that's something that a lot of people didn't realize when they watched the Eagles, how much Goedert means to that offense. But without Goedert, they have to play a lot more 12 personnel because they can't run the ball in 11 because Dallas Goedert's their best blocker. So you got to constantly add people just to try and get something on the ground. But Grant Calcaterra, not really a blocker.
Yeah.
But in the passing game, you also lose that middle of the field presence. Have you seen how many passes Jalen Hurts has thrown in the intermediate areas of the field so far?
Zero.
Zero. He has not targeted the intermediate areas of the field. This feels like the siloed version of the Eagles that we saw in 2023, where it was either screen pass or RPO or it's a go ball. There is no in between right now, and I think that's due with the lack of Dallas Goedert. But Kevin Patullo is going to have to figure something out because this Rams defense is built to win, dropping into zone coverage like a lot of teams do against the Eagles, and just winning with their pass rush. And especially if Landon Dickerson's still kind of gimpy, if he's still nursing that back injury, I wonder if the Rams are going to be able to get after him in pass rush.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on this Eagles offense and the passing game. It's like week one, you could forgive it with how the Cowboys played them, but they're going to have to find answers because this Rams, the Rams defense is built to not give you those go balls, right? Like they are, if there's anything they're going to do, they're going to have their corners sitting on top of any go ball. That's how they operate. And I would obviously feel better if Ahkello Withers, he has a collarbone injury, goes to IR. So it's going to be Darius Williams, Emmanuel Forbes as your corners. If they can't get it going against what I think is the smallest cornerback duo in the NFL now, like in terms of Darius Williams and Emmanuel Forbes, like 160 pounds. I'm worried. I'd be worried, but I do think this is the game, if any, that they can start to get that intermediate passing game going, or should be able to, because of how much the run should be there and how much the play action off the run should be there.
Especially because these Rams linebackers aren't that good. Like they're still trying to figure out what their best lineup is in that middle of the field area. And because they're going to be so drawn up in the run game, you should be able to attack the middle of the field in this game. But it's just about, can Kevin Patullo draw it up? Because it feels like their sequencing has been way off this year.
100%. And on the flip side, I think the Rams are the second team now that they can really go attack that CB2 position. They were talking, like Sean McVay has a red circle. He is dialing up everything he can to get Adoree Jackson to go one-on-one against Devontae. They're just like, that's just going to be, anytime you see that, that's going to be auto Matt Stafford going that way. So very excited. This one, I'm excited to see how schematically both teams handle this, because there's a lot of good matchups in this game, even though I just still think Eagles at the end of the day, it just comes down to Eagles O-line being able to lean on this Rams defensive line, in my opinion.
Yeah, I picked the Eagles at home on HQ just because, it's gonna be a close one, and they have the biggest margin, which is they can run the ball really well, they can convert on every third and fourth and short, and then schematically for the Rams, I do think we'll see a lot of Jordan Whittington in this game, not just because he is an effective blocker at receiver, but because you can kind of waste Cooper DeJean in the slot by having Jordan Whittington in the game, and then you're just going to pick on whoever is being defended by Adoree Jackson or Ja'Cory Bennett. So I wonder, how Vic Fangio schemes up helping Adoree Jackson or Bennett in this game, because they're going to hammer him, and they're not going to travel Quinyon Mitchell. So I wonder what he's got designed up for him.
Yeah, you have to go 11 personnel against this Eagles defense. You can. This Eagles base defense might be the best base defense in the NFL with how nasty, with when they go to the 3 down, and then you have guys like Nolan Smith and Jalix Hunt, how good they are in space, being able to just be like another linebacker themselves, and then having Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell as your outside corners. It's just like there's not a lot of ways to attack them in base. You got to go 11 personnel if you're the Rams. And obviously, I think Sean McVay knows that, and they will be. But very excited to see it. Very, very good jockeying for the top of the NFC. A very good litmus test for how close the Rams are to really competing here early on in the season. All right, let's get to the Broncos at Chargers, an AFC West showdown. The Chargers are on an AFC West warpath. They've taken down the Chiefs. They've taken down the Raiders. They're that death with the scythe meme at the doors. They've got 1, 2. This is the third. They're at home out in LA. They're 2.5-point favorites. 45.5 points is the over under, but a big injury for the Chargers. Khalil Mack, elbow injury. He's on IR. Won't be back until at least week 7 for them. How do we see this one playing out?
The Broncos have to run the ball. They have to get the ground game going, because that's the only way you're going to beat this Chargers defense. You have to force them to acknowledge your run game. You have to force them to move a safety down and get out of that split field coverage, because if they can just sit back with their 6 in the box and defend the run, you're going to lose. That's how effective they are in coverage. They close windows so quickly. They're so smart and well coached on the back end. One of my locks is Bo Nix under 214.5 passing yards, because it feels like this is the unstoppable force meets movable object, which is Bo Nix always throwing short passes against a team that really, really wants you to throw short passes, because they can rally and tackle so well. I would argue that this is the Chargers as a secondary unit are the best tacklers in the NFL amongst the secondary. But I just wonder if the Broncos are going to be able to generate any explosives on the ground or through the air against a team that is really well built to limit them.
Yeah, this one, I just feel like this feels like a Bo Nix bounce back game to me on the ground. I think he's going to go off as a runner in this game, because I think the Chargers, like you said, do such a good job of giving you nothing down the football field. And yeah, he could turn into a check down quarterback very easily in this game. But I think without Khalil Mack, they just don't have the guy I trust to go track him down, unless they really spy Diane Henley on him consistently in this game. I think this is the game I'm using Bo Nix and his legs as a runner to try to attack this Chargers defense. And I think it's just going to be a low scoring affair. I think they can actually, the first team that really can go toe to toe cornerback wise in man coverage against these Chargers wide receivers and not really blink. And so that's why I really like the under actually in this game. 45.5 under is actually one of my locks this week.
This game is going to feel like a rock fight. It's going to feel like a slugfest. I'm excited to watch both defenses, especially the Broncos going up against a quarterback who is playing among the best football at position right now.
Yeah.
I mean, Justin Herbert has been incredible. He has been so smart when it comes to identifying and diagnosing protection. And then as a scrambler, like you said, how Bo Nix is going to go off as a scrambler in this game. I think Justin Herbert's going to do the same thing. I do wonder if the Broncos try and just kind of spy him sometimes, especially on third down. But if Justin Herbert can get his legs going and convert a lot of first downs as a scrambler, that's going to change the game, especially because the Chargers are still trying to find what works in their run game outside of Herbert scrambles.
Yeah, it's actually, I mean, the fact that it's only a 2.5 point line with the way both quarterbacks are playing, it's probably a little surprising. I guess I'm picking Denver, so I'm not believing whatsoever, or not buying into that narrative, but they could not be playing two opposite ends of the spectrum at the quarterback position. We talked about it with Bo Nix and Justin Herbert. Like you said, maybe no one playing the quarterback position better through 2 weeks. But I do just think, I feel like the Broncos are kind of just due for a bounce back game. I don't know. I just feel it. All right, let's get to the Raiders at Commanders. Commanders 3.5-point favorites, 44.5 points is the over-under. Both teams come in 1-1. Both teams coming off of losses this past week. And the big news, though, Jaden Daniels has yet to practice with a knee injury. Still don't know if he is going to play in this one. Obviously, I wouldn't bet either side of this one until you really know that. But other big injuries here, Austin Eckler, Dietrich Wise, Achilles and a quad respectively. They go on IR. They're likely out for the year. Brock Bowers, still a limited participant through practice, likely to play, but maybe not full Brock Bowers that we come to know and love. How do we see this one playing out?
I think this one's going to be another low-scoring game, largely because if Jaden Daniels doesn't play, even if he does, Jaden Daniels with a bad knee against Max Crosby being blocked by a rookie right tackle who the last time we saw him against a premier pass rusher did not look like he should have been on the field. Mm-hmm. And I just kind of feel bad for Josh Connolly because he's got to go from Micah Parsons to Max Crosby the next week. This feels like he's fighting boss fight after boss fight and just like give him a little bit of a break. But I do think this game's going to be low scoring, especially if Mariota plays. I wonder how the Raiders are going to be able to generate some explosives on the ground game or even through the air. This feels like the game where if you want to get something going with your others at receiver, going against the Commanders secondary should help you find that groove because they're not that great. They're still very highly volatile. So I wonder if the volatility of the Raiders offense against the volatility of the Commanders defense, which one cancels each other out?
Yeah, I honestly have no handle on this game. And I love your point on Daniels with the knee, it being so crucial to this because it's not only Daniels with the knee, it's Daniels with the knee behind, like you said, that rookie right tackle who now has gone from the Giants edge rushers to Mike, to Abdul Carter, Brian Burns, to Micah Parsons, to Max Crosby. It's just like, when is he going to be able to take a breath? Sorry, Josh Connolly, that's just how the NFL rolls. But I just don't love that matchup. I don't love what his game is going to look like because it's just in your head. If you have any injury and you really are a guy as dynamic as he is, and all of a sudden that's just taken away. Not saying that he can't play from the pocket. He's excellent at it. It's just like that lives in the back of your head in a way that if he was fully healthy, you're not going to be as good from the pocket. And even just like having that knee injury, your base is not going to be as consistent. So I kind of like the Raiders in this one, at least to cover 3.5.
I do kind of like the Raiders in this one. Not only does Jaden Daniels have to worry about in the pocket, but the Commanders' offense is built on Jaden Daniels' scrambles and Jaden Daniels' run game. If Jaden Daniels has a bad knee and you just can't design a lot of run game stuff for him, that rushing offense becomes a little bit toothless. Especially, Bill Krosky-Merritt is fun, but we have to continue to see it against a Raiders defense that has played really well against the run to start the year. So I do wonder how they're going to generate any movement in the ground game just to kind of take some pressure off Daniels. And can this Commanders defense get some turnovers, get some negative plays to try and help the offense out a little bit?
Yeah, their defense has to have a game. Last week they were lucky to only give up 27 against the Packers. They were just getting rolled, it seemingly, left and right. They need a bounce back performance here. All right, let's get to Texans at Jaguars. Jaguars favored, 1.5-point favorites against the Houston Texans. 44.5 points is the over-under. But the Texans come in 0-2. They've lost to the Rams. They've lost to the Bucs. Obviously, no shame in losing to either of those two teams. Very good teams atop the NFC. But I don't think you can go to 0-3 and expect to realistically compete in this division, especially going to Jacksonville. Would you call this a must-win situation for this Texans team at this point in the season?
I think I would, just for the vibes of this game.
I 100% agree.
Like the vibe of this game, if you lose and you go 0-3 and your offense still can't get right, like if this is a game where the offense kind of gets right and the Jaguars win a shootout, you feel a little better. But if you lose like 14-9 again, or if you lose 17-10 again and the offense can't get anything going, then the alarm bells start ringing because you're supposed to – we knew this offense was going to struggle a little bit. But if they can't move the ball against a Jags defense that is going to attack them especially up front when it comes to pass rush and sorting out pass protections. That is going to be the biggest thing for CJ Stroud in this game. He has to be able to sort out pass protections better. He has to sort them out quicker, because I think a lot of what has plagued the Texans pass protection game is CJ Stroud is setting the protections, but he's also setting them late. So you're always under fire. You're always like, we got to get this ball going now because we're 5 seconds until we get a delay of game. So if he's able to get the protections in quickly, if they're able to slide a lot of the ways correctly, I think they got a chance. But this game I picked the under because I think this game is going to be a little bit of a drag out fight. But I do wonder, I want to see if the Jaguars can run the ball as effectively as they have in the first 2 weeks. Because the Texans, as good as they are against the pass, the Bucs kind of got after them on the ground. And I think that's something that the Jaguars are going to try and repeat this week.
And it's like Bucs got after them, and it's the same system. I mean, not the same system, but like, it is what Liam Cohen handed down to Josh Rizard there in Tampa. So I'm with you. I think I actually didn't say it, but I think the Jaguars win this game. I just don't think at any point this season the Texans are built to put up points. I don't care who they're playing. Unfortunately, they just have too many holes along the offensive line that are going to be too exploitable, that you're just never going to see like a clean game from them up front. And that's what it takes to be consistent offensive, is just to get that cleanliness for your quarterback. And especially against this Jags D. You've mentioned how multiple they've been this season with their fronts and how much they throw at you now that they just did not last year. And we saw it with Trayvon Walker against Cincy having one of his best games of his career. They just have too many guys there for the Houston Texans to consistently be able to block one-on-one. So I like the Jags. I do. I like the Jags a lot in this game, actually.
I kind of like the Jags too. I'm going to sound like a homer, but I kind of like them. I know, again, I have been emotionally hedging against this team for so long, but like if they're able to run the ball and shorten this game and you play with a lead against the Texans, you can just kind of lean on them until the defense eventually breaks. And I was just looking up how many targets each of the Texans receivers have this year. Justin Watson and Jaden Higgins have the same amount of targets going into this game. Justin Watson also has more targets than Jalen Noel. It just feels like they need something. They need somebody else outside of Nico Collins, who's the only person with double-digit targets so far this season. They need something in this game. And if the Jaguars can just kind of – I think they struggled against the Bengals because every time they went to that sim pressure look where they drop a lineman, they leave Tyson Campbell in isolated coverage against T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. But when they played the Panthers and they only had Teteroa McMillan, they were able to cloud coverage over towards him. I do think that we're going to see that a lot from Jacksonville on Sunday. And if they're able to get home, it's going to be a long day.
Yeah. CJ, there's just no layups for him this year, unfortunately. All right, let's get to the Cardinals at 49ers. 49ers 2.5-point favorites. That's even with Mac Jones being the starter in this game. 45.5 points is the over-under. Both teams roll in 2-0. Both teams have played the Saints, though. The Cardinals have probably had the easiest schedule in the NFL so far, being the Saints and Panthers, whereas the 49ers have beat the Seahawks and Saints. Some injuries, though. We said it after last week. Cardinals secondary is banged up. Will Johnson likely to play, but Garrett Williams goes on IR. Max Melton, questionable with a knee injury. He may not play. And here's the even bigger one. Paris Johnson was a limited participant yesterday in practice. If he is not a full go, that could be a big injury for them. And on the flip side, Jawan Jennings didn't practice on Thursday with an ankle injury. So injuries abound, but this one feels like the Cardinals, if you are going to win the West, you got to win this game. You got to, with a backup quarterback. If you can't beat freaking Mac Jones, you got to win this game if you're the Arizona Cardinals.
This is the please be serious game for the Cardinals. If you want to call yourself a serious football team, you go in and you beat a team led by Mac Jones at quarterback. I understand all the injuries in the secondary, but the 49ers receiver room isn't exactly a group of world beaters right now. And again, Mac freaking Jones is throwing the ball. I do really want to see the Niners run defense against this Cardinals run game because the Niners run defense has been freaking incredible. to start this season. Michael Williams has immediately made an impact. They're playing like the vintage 49ers, where everybody's just moving downhill quickly. Kalia Davis is playing really well. This is a game where I want to see Marvin Harrison Jr. get involved a little bit more. I want to see if they can get him just some easy targets to start the game. I think every target for him is so difficult. I just want to see him get some design touches. Throw him some screens, throw him some glance routes, get him some easy stuff going, get him some layups, and maybe that'll loosen up the defense a little bit. But I do also think, I didn't bet on it, but I do also think this game might go under because of just how sporadic the Cardinals are, and the 49ers are led by Mac Jones.
Yeah, that's always a factor, the Mac Jones factor. And like, we kind of never really discussed the 49ers offensive line, but they're always susceptible if you have true drop back situations. If you are, third and long, third and medium, you can get after this offensive line. I don't really know how to make heads or tails of this game, though. I'm with you on the under, but I think the 49ers win this game at home because of that turnaround with their run defense. I think it's real. They've added so many bodies to make it so this offseason, and you're seeing the fruits of that. Yeah, I like the 49ers. I just think this is a Cardinals, we have not seen them really get tested, and I am not super encouraged by how they handled and really failed to put away in a meaningful manner teams like the Saints and the Panthers. Yeah, you got W's. That's all you can ask. Sometimes it doesn't always look pretty in the NFL. But if they play that game that we saw from them weeks 1 and 2 against the 49ers, I just think they lose.
They need 60 minutes of good football. Like I said on previous shows, the Cardinals will always play 15 minutes of bad football, and you never know when those 15 minutes are. They need a complete game on Sunday. I think that'll prove a lot to not only the Cardinals, but prove a lot to the rest of the NFL that this is a team that is serious about winning games come playoff time. I don't know what to make of this game. I don't know. I feel like this game could go either way, but
dude, to me, that's every single NFC West game. Every single NFC West game. I don't care who it is. I don't care where it's at. I have the exact same take. I'm like,
I don't know. Like,
who the hell knows?
We'll see.
Who the hell knows?
We will see. The West is wild this year. I think I'm just gonna lean. I'm gonna lean Niners. I think they have the speed to contain Kyler Murray this time around, and if they can just hold this Cardinals offense to a low scoring output, maybe Kyle Shanahan will design something for Christian McCaffrey as a receiver downfield.
All right, let's get to Falcons at Panthers. Falcons 5.5-point favorites on the road. 43.5 points is the over-under here. I know they're on the road. I know AJ Terrell may not be playing, but I just think the Panthers stink, unfortunately. I just think the Falcons roll big time. I think double-digit sort of win sort of game because two reasons. One, you mentioned the Panthers run defense last week, that you're going to bet the over on every team going against them. And it's like Bijan freaking Robinson and what they've been doing on the ground, last week, rolling into Carolina. And two, that the Falcons have the number 1 defense in the NFL this year in EPA per play. they are. This is not last year's Falcons where to win games, they pretty much had to roll up 30. This is a much different animal this year. So I like both the under Falcons to win, and one of my locks is also Tedder McMillan going over 65.5 rushing yards because he's the only one they're going to be throwing to. And if AJ Terrell doesn't play, well, then he's going to get a zillion targets in this game.
One of my locks is actually Falcons -5.5. Like you said, this defense for Atlanta is so good, and they're playing at a really high level right now. I just think they're going to be able to poke holes in that passing game, especially even with AJ Terrell out. I do think they're going to be able to get a lot of pressure because the one thing that Bryce Young and the Panthers have not been able to do is sort out pressure looks. And that's something that Jeff Ulbrich is going to do a lot of. I've been really impressed with all the rookies on that side of the ball. They've all made big plays this year. I just think the defense is going to be able to poke holes in Carolina's offense. And I want to see if Michael Penix Jr. can just be a little more efficient in the short to intermediate game. I really like Michael Penix. There are just going to be some misses. He's just going to have some weird misses sometimes. I want to see if he can kind of iron those out, because if he does in this game shouldn't be close.
Yeah, I complete agreement with all. All right, let's take a quick break. After that, we're going to hit the rest of the Week 3 slate.
Saturday is big time and prime time. First, Bryce Underwood in Michigan in a big-time matchup against Dylan Raiola and the Huskers. Then a prime-time Apple Cup between the Huskies and Cougars.
The Dallas Cowboys are 1.5-point favorites rolling into Chicago to face the Bears. Total of that game is 50.5. Cowboys come in 1-1 with losses to the Eagles, win at the Giants last week, or against the Giants last week. Bears come in 0-2 in what is, I mean, you call it a must-win. I think a lot of people, after their start to the season, are just saying this might be a wash of a season for the Chicago Bears, myself included in that. But the funny thing of this going in, and I was doing some stats research. This is, as everyone predicted, the number one offense in rushing success rate for the Dallas Cowboys in the NFL, and the last ranked Chicago Bears in terms of rushing success rate in the NFL, facing off against each other here.
This game is going to be so chaotic. It's going to be so chaotic in so many different ways. You have Caleb Williams, who everybody wants to talk about, against the Dallas Cowboys, who everybody wants to talk about. I think this game is going to be a shootout. I think this game is going to have a lot of points. Jalen Johnson not going to play. Kyler Gordon missed time with injury during this week, might not play. And that is not a good concoction going up against Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens. And it looks like the Dak and George Pickens connection has gotten a little better. They improved against the Giants. I'm going with Dak's over as one of my locks in this game, over on passing yards, because this game is just going to be up and down the field. I actually think Caleb Williams has played pretty well within the structure of Ben Johnson's offense. I just think they're just going to be the mechanical misses that are really going to frustrate them, and they can't run the ball. They just can't run the ball. DeAndre Swift is not I don't understand why they went with DeAndre Swift this year when Ben Johnson got rid of DeAndre Swift in Detroit. I don't get it. I don't think I ever will get it. But if you're not going to be able to run the ball and you're just going to force Caleb Williams to try and win this game for you, I don't think that's a good recipe for success against a Cowboys team that's going to put up a lot of points.
Yeah, I just think the Bears are just not good. And especially if you don't have Kyler Gordon and Jalen Johnson this one, what do you do against CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens? What is your game plan at that point? I think the Cowboys absolutely roll them. I have -1.5 as one of my locks. And I think I'd even feel comfortable throwing that up to a -6.5 if you want to go play with some better odds, because I don't think this one ends up being close, in my opinion. I think the Bears are a similar sort of locker room vibe to Miami, where it's just you're rolling in with such – Miami didn't really have high hopes, but demoralization after the first 2 weeks of the season. Just no real areas to point to where we're excited about XYZ. You're kind of just we thought we could compete with the rest of the NFC North, and it turns out we're kind of the same team we saw last year, unfortunately.
If there isn't a game where they want to pick up a win through the explosive passing game, it's against the Cowboys, because Russell Wilson just lit this secondary up for 400 passing yards.
Yeah.
If Caleb Williams can't get that going against the Cowboys, then we might have to have a little bit of a deeper conversation.
And like you said, Jerron Bland may not play in this one. So it could be, Reddy Stewart could be your starting nickelback for the Dallas Cowboys. They did not think about their secondary. They're
we have Michael Parsons. This should be fine.
Yeah. But the pass rush is good. Oops. What happened to that? All right, let's get to Cincinnati Bengals at Minnesota Vikings. Backup bowl here. Vikings 3-point favorites. 42.5 points is the over-under here. Some other big injuries, though. Aaron Jones, we said, goes to IR. Vikings running back Shamar Stewart, first rounder for the Bengals, doubtful with an ankle injury. On the flip side, first rounder for the Vikings, Donovan Jackson, questionable with a wrist injury. Andrew Van Ginkel may not play with a concussion, still hasn't been fully cleared to go. And then the big question, though, Christian Darrisaw, still a DNP, didn't practice on Thursday, looks unlikely to play this weekend. His backup, Justin School, also a DNP. He had a concussion during last week's game. So that means your starting left tackle is going to be Walter Rouse, 2024 sixth rounder for the Minnesota Vikings if both those guys are out. That's not great because Trey Hendrickson leads the NFL in pressures this year with 14. Didn't show any ill effects of that holdout. So I kind of like the Bengals for all those reasons with the way the injuries are going. It's two backup quarterbacks. And I just trust Jake Browning, I think, a little bit more at this point than Carson Wentz.
It's such a funny game because the way I think about it is, which backup quarterback do I trust? I trust Jake Browning more than Carson Wentz, who just got there. But which play caller do I trust more? I trust Kevin O'Connell much more than Zach Taylor. But at the end of the day, if they're not going to have Darisaw, they're not going to have Justice School, who is bad, but also like has starting reps with the starters. I mean, this game should be a Trey Hendrickson takeover game. Again, I worry about this Vikings secondary against Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. I wonder how Brian Flores is going to game plan against two top flight receivers on the same team. And I kind of lean Bengals here just because, like, man, I really don't want to see Carson Wentz play football. I really do not want to see that.
Dude, and Wentz with the blind side that's shaky is, yeah, I mean, he's got some of the worst pocket presence at the quarterback position. That kind of is what did him in ultimately with his time in Philly and Indy and all the different stops he's been at this point in time. But it's also funny. I feel like Zach Taylor, once he goes, like last time when Jake Browning came in, all of a sudden they start pushing easy buttons in the offense. They start doing like a lot of play action stuff, a lot of screen game stuff. It's like a lot of stuff that you just like don't do with Joe Burrow for one reason or another. And like, I've kind of lived through that, you know, when Aaron Rodgers would go down in Green Bay, they'd start doing that. And there's always a balance to strike, but I feel like they always don't strike it well in Cincy.
Who would have thought that make the offense a little easier? Like giving your quarterback easy buttons. Who would have thought that would have made the offense a little better?
Yeah. So I expect a ton of screens, a ton of play action pass for the Cincinnati Bengals. And honestly, I think they win, even though it is on the road. So, all right. Let's get to Steelers at Patriots. Steelers 1.5-point favorites on the road. 44.5 points is the over-under. Both teams with a very ho-hum 1-1 start to the season. Steelers beat the Jets, lost to the Seahawks. Path lost to the Raiders, bounced back with a win over the Dolphins. I don't know. This one, I made it one of my locks. I may be regretting it, but it's actually two of my locks. I have the over, and I have the Patriots covering that 1.5 point as dogs at home. I just think with Christian Gonzalez likely playing, practice yesterday, limited though, but has a hamstring. If he plays, you can have him on DK Metcalf, and I just don't see where the Pittsburgh Steelers go from there.
This game feels like it's going to be a slog. It feels like this game is just going to be like it's going to be like a bar fight where two dudes are just headbutting each other until one of them passes out.
Like a bar fight where they're not like skilled, where they're just like
and
it's just like punches they're like coming from.
Yeah, somebody hits them. Somebody hits themselves. There are like bottles flying around. It's not a fun bar fight. This is all right. Please, like somebody go help them. What kind of bar fight? I actually also lean Patriots here because I really worry about the Steelers' offensive line when it comes to pass protection, and in front of a quarterback who doesn't really move the way he does to eliminate pass or pressures at this point. It hasn't been a very good start to the season for Broderick Jones. Hasn't been a good start to the season for Troy Fautanu. I do think that the Patriots are very good at pass rush. That is what they are built to do. And if they can get Aaron Rodgers into some negative plays like we saw against the Seahawks, he's going to force something. And when he forces it, I do think the Patriots secondary with Christian Gonzalez is going to be a lot better. Something to note for the Steelers defense, I believe Terrell Austin spoke earlier this week about the communication aspects of the Steelers defense. That's been something that they have struggled with a lot in this early part of the season. If you remember, the Torrey Horton touchdown was the exact same play that the Jets ran for a touchdown for Garrett Wilson in the first week of the season. It was both deep crosser routes. The Steelers played cover one, and they just didn't pass it off. I think they said Darius Slay was supposed to go to the safety, and then Juan Thornhill would take the other crosser the other way, and they just didn't pass it off. And for a secondary as old, as experienced as they are, that shouldn't be happening right now. So I wonder how they simplify coverages. Do they play a little bit more split safety? Because that might help them out. But if not, I mean, the Patriots are a 12 personnel team. They're going to try and get them into base and run over routes and crossing routes. So I think the Patriots win, and I think this one's going to be a rock fight.
Yeah, not exactly rookie mistakes when two of your corners are 10 plus years into the NFL at this point. you know, yeah, I don't think either of these teams are serious like bounce back candidates. We put them in when we did the tiers, the teams that just need more talent. They just aren't. When you look across the NFL, they aren't in the same realm as the teams that are, at least the teams that are in like the Super Bowl tier that we have. But I do just think that I trust Drake May a little bit more than Aaron Rodgers right now, is what this one comes down to. If someone's going to make a play, either with their legs or down the football field, just trust Drake May a little bit more than Aaron Rodgers. And I think that's ultimately why I lean Patriots in this one. All right, let's go to Colts at Titans. Colts minus 4.5 point favorites on the road. They've obviously been rolling the first 2 weeks of the season. 43.5 points is the over under. This is actually one of Harry's locks. Harry loves Daniel Jones going over 211.5 passing yards. The Tennessee Titans secondary defense has been kind of solid so far through 2 weeks. I just don't see, though, this Colts train stopping anytime soon, in my opinion. I just think I did not give them enough credit for how good this roster was early on in the season. I worried a little bit too much about their offensive line. And as we've said, the offensive line's been balling with those two new additions at center and guard.
I just don't think the Titans can protect Cam Ward well enough to stay in this game. I don't think they have the receiver group. I don't think they have the offensive line group to help Cam Ward out at all in this one. I think that this game is going to be, I think the Colts are going to kind of run away with it. I believe the Titans are 30th in ESPN's pass block win rate as a team right now. That's not very good. So I think if the Colts and Lou Anarumo can force this young quarterback into some very reckless decisions, I think the Colts run away with this one.
Yeah, and 31st in PFF pass blocking grade. The one saving grace, though, is that the Indianapolis Colts 27th in terms of pass rushing grade. So maybe not the unit. We haven't seen this big Latu breakout that I was hoping for through a couple weeks, but it's not like I still just don't think it matters. The Tennessee Titans are just not a good football team. I will not be picking them to cover many spreads. This is just too low. I like the Colts a lot in this one. All right, Jets at Bucks. Bucks 6.5 point favorites here. 43.5 points is the over under. Jets come in 0-2, obviously. Bucks come in 2-0, going different directions to start the season, but some big injuries in this one, and especially for the Tampa Bay Bucks, because Cody Mock, guard, out on IR with a knee injury. Luke Gedeke, foot injury. He goes to IR. Tristan Wirfs, Chris Godwin, both practicing, but in limited fashion, still unlikely to play. And then Emeka Egbuka with a hip injury didn't practice yesterday. So the Bucks may be down 2 of their top 3 wide receivers, 3 of their starting offensive linemen, and yet they're still 6.5 point favorites. And oh, by the way, Justin Fields is out for this game with a concussion. So it's Tyrod Taylor. But that might not even be like a downgrade. I don't think that even factors. Like if Justin Fields are playing, I'm not sure this line moves one bit. That all being said, I think I still like the Bucks. I think I still like the Bucks to even cover.
The vibes were so much higher a couple weeks ago for this game. I was so excited for this one. Schematically, I think it'd be a really fun matchup. And then the football gods decided to strike with a vengeance against Tampa Bay. Like for some reason, like they're giving Baker Mayfield harder battles, which I do think Baker Mayfield is the one quarterback to pray for. He prays for harder battles. Yeah. And so the football gods gave him one. I still like, one of my locks is Tampa Bay minus 6.5 because it's Tyrod Taylor. And I do still think that Todd Bowles is going to design a game plan to really get after this Jets offense, especially because they only have one receiver that they can trust. So I do still think the Bucks pull away with this one, especially at home. And I think that the Bucks are going to be able to work around some of their offensive line injuries.
Ooh, you like it so much that it's one of your locks of the week. I'm not going that far because let me read to you their starting offensive line if all those guys are out. I mean, if Tristan Wirfs doesn't come back. It's Graham Barton at left tackle. Obviously was drafted to play center, was a collegiate left tackle, has been, probably even worse. Like when Joe Thuney went to the left tackle position, guard, he's been even worse than that. It's been kind of rough at left tackle to start. Elijah Klein at left guard. Bren Bredesen at center, Luke Haggard at right guard, Charlie Heck at right tackle.
Oof.
That's not good. It's not as if the Jets are bereft of talent defensively on the defensive line. Now they've gotten not good results, shall we say, at the start of the Aaron Glenn era. It has not been a value add for them in terms of how they've played the first 2 weeks, but they should at least be able to still rush the passer and get to Baker Mayfield. No,
Baker's ADOT in this game is going to be 4. It's going to be like some ungodly number because they're going to throw so many screens. They're going to quick game the hell out of this one just to avoid having to put their offensive line in situations where they have to pass block on islands.
Mm-hmm.
I do think even without the experience up front with their starters, I do think they'll still run the ball pretty well against this Jets defense. So if they're able to run the ball, screen game them, and then Todd Bowles masterclass on defense, I think they'll be able to run away with this one.
I like the under though. If anything, if I'm betting anything, under 43.5.
Yeah.
Just because backup quarterback, backup O-line. The Bucs have gone under that number in both of their first 2 games too. So give me the under 43.5. All right. Saints at Seahawks. Seahawks 7.5 point favorites against the Saints. 41.5 points is the over under here. Some injuries to note. Taliesa-Fuaga, right tackle, knee injury, didn't practice yesterday. Chase Young, calf injury, defensive end, obviously, for the Saints, didn't practice. But then some big injuries still for the Seahawks secondary. Julian Love, hammy, Devon Witherspoon, knee, Nick Manwari, ankle, all didn't practice. And then Zach Charbonnet with a foot injury didn't practice. Obviously, Kenny Walker there still. So maybe not the biggest injury. I think 7.5 is just crazy too much for a Seahawks offense that we've kind of been lamenting as susceptible. And it's not like the Saints defense is terrible. They've not gotten completely exposed through the first 2 weeks. It's more just been their offense has been lackluster. I just think this number is too much, in my opinion.
I think this is going to be a close one, actually. I think this is going to be like a sneaky close game. I actually think Spencer Rattler has kind of played well to start the year. I think he's made some really high-level throws that have sort of gone like under the radar because the Saints have always kind of like shot themselves in the foot. I couldn't find it, so I couldn't make him my lock, but I do like Juwan Johnson's over on receptions because one thing Spencer Rattler has done is hammer Juwan Johnson, especially in the short to intermediate game. But I do like the Seahawks here still. I don't think the Saints offense has enough up front against a Seahawks defensive front that's going to get after them in a lot of different ways, especially with Fuaga out. Cesar Ruiz playing. He was not good against the Niners on Sunday, and I think this is an even bigger matchup, an even worse matchup for him. So I think if the Seahawks can get their pass rush going, get some negative plays, they should kind of be able to wear this Saints defense down.
Yeah, I don't necessarily love the Saints to win, pull off the upset, but I don't really necessarily think the Seahawks roll away with this one either. But a game that if the Seahawks are serious, they should roll away from the New Orleans Saints. All right, 2 more games to go. Kansas City Chiefs, 5.5 point favorites, traveling to New York to face the Giants. 44.5 points is the over, but both of these teams, well, they're 0-2. They haven't won a game yet. Some injuries. Xavier Worthy, still limited participant with that shoulder. Probably not going to play. Christian Fulton, cornerback for the Chiefs, did not practice. Seems unlikely to play himself. Giants, I don't know what to make of the Giants. First, week 1, 6 points. Looked like the worst offense in the NFL. Week 2, 40 points. Looked like a powerhouse of an offense. Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, this one's one of my throw my hands up. I don't know what to make of either of these teams. I don't think the Chiefs are that good this year, but they seemingly still have Patrick Mahomes and have the ability to put away probably lesser teams, but they are the record. They're 0-2 right now and have not looked great against the Chargers and Eagles. Obviously much better teams than the New York Giants.
We got to get the Giants off Sunday Night Football. We can't keep doing this to ourselves.
How many do they have this year? They have like a lot, right?
There's just too many primetime Giants games, especially for a team with Russell Wilson at quarterback. I do think for the Chiefs, this feels like a get-right game, like a get-back game, especially for their pass rush, because if you can't get pressure against the Giants' offensive line, then there are major issues up front. But I do think they'll be able to get some pressure. I think that I just don't trust the volatility of the Giants offense, especially with Russ at quarterback. And this game, I still kind of like the under here. I didn't lock it, but I thought about it. I think the Chiefs win, but this game is going to be real low scoring for both sides.
If the Giants do win this game, if they can pull off the upset, is it over for the Chiefs? Are we packing up? Are they not making the playoffs this year if the Giants win this game?
If they go into a 0-3 hole after a Sunday night football loss to the Giants, I don't want to say their playoff hopes are done because I have seen the Chiefs do some crazy things, but their Super Bowl hopes are zero. I just don't think if they are not able to slow down this Giants offense, if they're not able to get pass rush, if they're still busting coverages, and they actually did better as a unit against the Eagles in the secondary. They were playing better communication. They were tackling better. If they can't beat the Giants, then yeah, man, it's looking scary.
Yeah, it's a must win. That's if you are to maintain your reputation, that is the Kansas City Chiefs over the past half decade. It's a must win. All right. Last game of the week. Packers at Browns. Packers 7.5-point favorites. Packers come in 2-0 with two of the more impressive wins so far in the NFL, beating the Lions, beating the Commanders. Browns come in 0-2 with two of the more unimpressive losses so far, losing to the Bengals, losing to the Ravens. Some injuries. Joel Bitonio didn't practice, left guard for the Browns. Jack Conklin, elbow, limited participant in practice. Conklin is like, this feels like every week with him. It seems like he is the most injured offensive lineman I've ever seen. That guy is on every single injury report. I hate to see what his litany of surgeries look like at the end of his career and how he's walking in 20 years, but hopefully everything goes well with him. For the Packers, though, a lot of LPs. Aaron Banks, left guard. Zach Tom, right tackle. Tucker Kraft, your tight end. Josh Jacobs and Nate Hobbs, all limited in practice yesterday. And then obviously Jaden Reed with that collarbone injury goes to IR. The Packers are just going to, if this game's close, I will be absolutely floored.
This game feels like this is going to be over by like halftime. This feels like another game that we're going to see Dylan Gabriel in because I just don't think they're going to be able to block Green Bay. They're not going to be able to block Green Bay up front. Like this game should get really out of hand, especially with the way that defense is playing right now. I know Cleveland will be at home. They're wearing the doo-doo helmets. They're wearing the doo-doo helmets. I don't think this is a good omen at all for the Browns. I think the Packers kind of blow them out. But it will be fun seeing Myles Garrett and Micah Parsons kind of on one side of the ball.
The two, would you call them the two best edge rush? I mean, Myles Garrett's obviously one. Would you put Parsons at two?
Yeah. I think Myles Garrett and Micah Parsons are the 1-2 when it comes to premier edge rushers in the NFL. And the way that they win is both so unique with Myles' ability as a technical pass rusher, but also being 6'5", 270, and being able to dip his shoulder the way that he does. And then Micah Parsons is just a freak of nature, being able to move the way he does.
Yeah, I think with both of them, it's just the speed. It's not that they necessarily, there are guys that win as consistently, but when they win, the play's over. The play's over. You better have hit the back foot on a quick game and the ball be out, or else that play is unfortunately over. All right, let's get to the locks recap and let's get out of here. Locks are sponsored all season long by Cash App. Making money moves should be easy, and that's why there's Cash App. It's fast, safe, and honestly just way more personalized than other apps out there. What do you got this week? Recap us.
All right, so I got Green Bay -8.5 against the Browns. I have Tampa Bay -6.5 against the Jets. I have Atlanta -5.5 against the Carolina Panthers. I have Houston at Jacksonville under 44.5. Bo Nix under 214.5 passing yards. And then Dak Prescott over 264.5 passing yards. I'm feeling confident. I think the first week I had to get a couple, just do 3, but now I'm feeling a little more confident in just putting some more numbers out there.
All right, mine. I have Saquon over 89.5 rushing yards against the Rams. I have Tedero McMillan over 65.5 receiving yards against the Falcons. I have that Broncos-Chargers game going under 45.5. I have that Vikings-Bengals game going under 42.5. I have Steelers-Patriots going over 44.5. I have the Patriots covering 1.5 points as a home dog. And then I flipped it. I had Washington initially I said, no, let's go Dallas -1.5 against the Chicago Bears. Here he goes with CeeDee Lamb's over 81.5 receiving yards, Bijan Robinson over 111.5 rushing plus receiving yards, and then Daniel Jones over 211.5 passing yards. All player props for Harry. And Kyle went with the lone Detroit Baltimore over 51.5. Respect it. Hey, if you got a bead, it's all about percentage. We're not talking about volume here, even though I'm a volume shooter through the first 3 weeks. That was the locks, sponsored by Cash App. As you heard me say at the top of the show, new Cash App users can use our code to get free money. Use our code PUSHING. Send $5 to a friend within 14 days, and you'll get $10 right in your account. Thank you, Cash App. That is the Week 3 preview. We'll be back on Sunday night this week. I'm back in America, so Sunday night we'll be recapping all the Week 3 action. Until then, keep pushing.